What would you do to save the life of your child? Welcome to the FGS Horror Club, where I shine a spotlight for club members on the best in horror and maybe your new favorite game you just don't know about yet. This week we're looking at a brand new horror adventure game, as if that means anything, that has you solving puzzles, fighting brutal enemies, and traversing two parallel worlds like some kind of The Medium. This game's two worlds are dripping with atmosphere. You play as a woman living in a post-Soviet town where your child has disappeared, sending you down a path where you'll explore both the waking and unholy worlds, which contrast each other wonderfully, where you'll come up against masked enemies that you can sneak around or take on directly. There's also a system called emotions, which gives you special abilities. These emotions are anger, fear, sadness, and desire, and each one has their own pros and cons. You can also make your own mask that grants you other skills and abilities that can have a pretty big effect on the overall gameplay. It's not a perfect experience by any means, and some could find it hard to identify where you have to go or how to beat certain puzzles, but for most players this looks to be a great horror experience, and I'm very curious to see where its story and gameplay go as the game goes on. Unholy released in the middle of last week, and I'm recording this the day before it releases, so I'm curious to see what people think of the game once it's out. This game's different approach to horror both tonally, visually, and in its gameplay reminds me of a game that released just last year. Replace the hellish landscape and red tones of Unholy with a modern city bathed in blues and purples, and you have Ghostwire Tokyo. And yes, it's definitely not a perfect game. A bloated campaign and simplistic combat that doesn't meaningfully change or evolve over the game's entire runtime, make sure of that. But as a ravenous fan of all things cryptids and mythical creatures, a game where most of the content is hunting down yokai across a beautifully realized Tokyo is perfect. Tango Gameworks are masters of art design, and this was the last game the excellent Ikumi Nakamura worked on before leaving the studio. Hunting down famous yokai and fighting off slit-mouthed ladies is a great time, but don't go in adamant to beat the game. I always wonder about the human preoccupation with other worlds right next to our own. Almost every culture and religion in human history has something like this, and science seems to confirm there's light outside of the spectrum of what we can see. Colors. Fourth-dimensional directions we can never comprehend, let alone move towards. And see what is right around corners we don't even know are there. In the double-slit experiment, that demonstrates that light and matter can be both waves and particles at the same time, proving the fundamentally probabilistic nature of quantum mechanics, you can see a strange phenomenon. In the original delayed choice experiment of 1978, particles like photons and electrons passed through two slits, but it seemed that when not perceived by a conscious observer, the particles would pass through both slits simultaneously. But when it was watched, seen by a person, then particles would pass through one slit or the other. If particles only truly exist when you're looking at them, if Schrödinger's cat is truly alive and dead until you open the box, then you shape your reality to be what it is every single day. Begging the question, can you change it? I want to believe. You're part of the club now. If you want to see more horror spotlights like this one every Tuesday, subscribe to the FGS channel.